ready? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. All right, questions?
Mr. Castillo, first of all, your reaction to what happened in court today and the judge's decision?
Well, you know, it was what's to be expected from our juvenile system. I mean, nothing more, nothing less. I mean, it is what it is, and it's a step towards moving through this and moving on to the second domestic terrorist. It's taken place. I was relieved that we had so many people testify and be able to release the emotions they've been carrying around for the past few months. As we go through and we see things and the deterioration of our society, I hope that as we look forward down the road to preventing acts of domestic terror or school shootings, that we looked at the impact it has on families and society. And even now, you know, not just in schools, but we're seeing in our local society with rioting and destruction, that there has to be an end, there has to be justice, there has to be protectors allowed to protect. And people who disapprove of this need to speak up. They need to be a voice. What we've seen here today is what's allowed within our legal system, but it's not an answer to the future. That comes from within. It comes from people's convictions to doing good, doing the right thing, to faith, to religion, to ending injustice. Injustice isn't destruction. It's not violence. It's making positive, sustainable change. And that's what we need to look for. What we saw here was basically, again, like I said, what's allowed within our court system, but we need people to become active in our legal system, our legislator, go down to the Capitol, get involved, be a voice, and not be the silent majority sitting at home hoping that change is coming from someone else. The only way real change happens is when people get behind a movement. And the movement can't be a destructive one. It has to be positive. So my message to people, if you love your children, you want to support their education and make sure they return home safe, don't defund your police departments. Don't take SROs out of schools. Look at the important things in life. Be brave, be strong, be like Kendrick Castillo. Forge a new path. Stand up to things. Don't be afraid. I'll continue to fight and be an activist for change. And I need people behind me who feel the same way.
I don't want to mention his name, but the defendant mentioned in court that, if you're thinking about shooting up a school, go seek help. Don't be a coward behind a gun. Your thoughts about that?
Well, you know, people will say all sorts of crazy things after they've committed a crime. Yeah, that's right. They should seek help. But in many cases, this isn't about mental health. Mental health is for a kid struggling and thinking about suicide and taking their own life. And there's many out there. There are people who need help. We need beds at a state level to help people who are troubled. But violent terrorists who attack are going to hide behind that. You know, I didn't stay there. I didn't stay in the courtroom to hear what the defendant had to say, and there's a good reason for that. You know, smoking mirrors, crocodile tears, lack of remorse, all of those things are reality. Don't be fooled, people. Don't be fooled by the defendant in this courtroom. Don't be fooled by the destruction in our neighborhoods where people are hiding behind the death of George Floyd or Elijah McClain, people will slide back. It's well orchestrated. Be aware, make your own decisions.
Can you go ahead and just elaborate? There were two distinct times when you decided you were going to leave the courtroom. Talk about your decision not to hear from either of those parties, the mother and the defendant.
It's quite simple. It's not going to bring any healing or closure, and it doesn't really make a difference. I mean, a murder was committed. A family who knew about the terror that was going to be rained down on innocent children in a school did nothing. They didn't speak out against it. There are people in a building who knew. There's other individuals who walk around with that guilt. It's not important for me to hear their justification for doing so. That's why I left.
And no apology will ever mean anything?
No. No apologies will ever bring back Kendrick. No amount of activism that I do is going to magically let Kendrick reappear. I need to make change that's sustainable. And at this point in time, hearing opinions of murderers and rioters and people like that have no bearing. We need to be strong as individuals.
What about the judge's comment about sentencing when he mentioned a high sentence, the numbers that were given out there, would glorify what happened? Did you
Well,
talk about
yeah, I do. A number is a number after a certain point. Nobody's going to live 400 years. So it's like, that's kind of irrelevant in itself. But the thing of it is, I don't feel that it glorifies anything. I think that we need to change this thing to an act of domestic terror. What's going to change it is how we prosecute it and how it's treated. Under federal law, making it tougher so people don't commit these things is going to stop it. If we go all the way back to Columbine, Marjorie Stone Douglas, Santa Fe, Texas, these things are going to continue. And let me tell you one thing so you hear it here first. With COVID and how we do the reintroduction into our school systems when there's online learning is a golden ticket for somebody planning the next one. Let's be aware. Let's be smart. Our school board should be looking at how we're reintroducing children into our schools to create safety. Opportunity is what people get when they want to do harm. We need to be smart about it. We need to look at all angles. And we don't need to look at the price tag of what it takes to create safe environments. That should be a priority at whatever the cost is.
Can you speak to what today means to you? Because I know you mentioned that the reason for going on is gone, but is there any sort of closure with this sentence, or with what today brings?
My wife and I will never have closure. We'll never find peace. We have a new normal now, and the normal is activism, and it's for helping other families so that they don't end up where we're at. We wish this on no one. But for whatever reason, we were chosen. Evil walked into that room that day, and Kendrick Castillo stepped up and stopped it. I hear on the media that, they tried to stop it. No. They stopped it. They shut it down. People are alive today because of his sacrifice. And Kendrick would not want his mother and I to wallow in sorrow and not take action. And that's what we plan to do. We plan to do it for schools. We plan to do it for our communities. We plan to change the way our environment is. Our people's house that is being defaced and destructed as we talk. At 5 o'clock today, they're attacking the federal government downtown at the Capitol. Tomorrow it'll be in Aurora. Citizens need to band together. They don't need to invoke violence, but they need to speak up. They need to be a voice. They need to support our men and women in blue and their protectors. They need to be sure that they're well funded. And they need to be brave and not afraid. And that's what we plan to do. That's our new purpose in life. We'll never have children again. That's what we're going to do.
You also have some really strong words for the defendant when you were testifying in there as with your wife. Was that a moment that you had been waiting for to address him, to speak to him,
Well, to your last question, absolutely. What COVID has done and the environment that we're in has created an environment where we can't see body language, we can't confront an individual without a mask and see the raw emotions. They can't see our raw emotions. Yeah, it has huge effect on what's going on. It is what it is. We can't change the course of that. We can ask our governor who creates these orders what kind of effect it has on a family like us. I plan to do so. I don't think it's fair that we have to sit here and look at somebody through a choppy TV screen with crocodile tears and no emotions. It's a golden ticket for them. It doesn't bring home the realism of what we feel. That's why those words had to be powerful. And to your point about how I prepared for it, every day I wake up, I break down several times throughout the day. People think that I'm all right. They see these interviews, but they don't know. They don't know how my wife handles it. It's a daily walk, and I'm ready at any moment to talk about it and express my emotions. And maybe, just maybe, there might be a little bit of healing that comes out of it when I'm done doing that. You know, I'm ready to go. We've never missed a single court case, and I don't plan to. Every individual is different. I talked to a father who lost his son in Marjorie Stone, and he hasn't attended a single court case. So it's very personal. For my wife and I, we have to be here. We want the perpetrators to see our face. We want people to feel our pain. We want to make the change, and the only way we can do that is to be present. No, I just want to thank you all for coming out. It's been over a year since we've tackled this. Continue to support my wife and I and give us the platform that's been so valuable in expressing how we feel. It's what's going to make the difference. And do me a favor and do fair reporting with your editors. As time goes on, I think that the kindness and the impact changes. And I would just like all of the media to know that, you know, remember Kendrick Castillo, hashtag Kendrick Castillo, remember the hero, and do the right thing. He stopped the killers. He didn't try. He did it. That's all I'd like people to know. Thank you.
Any questions for the Sheriff's Office? Yes, so I can do this. Thank you.
How do you feel like this case has changed how policing in schools? Has it changed how policing in schools is done?
Well, it has changed policing in schools here in Douglas County with the cooperation with the Douglas County School Board and the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners. As you know, we put together a pretty good project to add resources to the school and money, particularly for mental health programs within inside the school, additional SROs, and also some hardening and some high-tech intelligence stuff in some of our schools. So it has made a change in our school, in the Douglas County School District, and I think that other schools have looked at what we've done and are making calls. I'm here to tell you right now is that I'm emphatically against taking SROs out of school. Kendrick Castillo is a hero. Kendrick Castillo was the kid, the young man, the hero that made the difference, okay? But we as a people don't always have Kendricks available to us. And we have to have the ability to have law enforcement, as well as law enforcement has the opportunity to take a look at kids in schools and assess them and make some early intervention. And that's what we hope that can happen. And so I think that every school, school district should be continuing to think about SROs and stay on that project for the safety of their children.
Just your thoughts on today's sentence. I mean, it wasn't exactly the maximum that had been asked
No, the sentence, well, I asked for life without parole forever. I think that is the closest that justice could occur with this defendant. I understand the law, but I also understand that there's also circumstances that politics can play a role in this. The people of the state of Colorado can play a role in this on who the elected governor is and who the appointed Department of Corrections director is, on helping making those kinds of decisions on how long individuals remain in jail, particularly those like this defendant who have clearly indicated that they're violent and they have made violent tendencies from times that they were young to today. So it's not what I wanted, and I didn't ask for any leniency, and I will continue to urge the court, and anytime I get the opportunity, that the strictest sentence possible should be administered.
Does that have, those feelings, are those partially related or completely related to the impact that this has had on your community?
Well, this is an individual who took the life of a young man and attempted to take the life of 6 others. There's not a big stretch from there, particularly for a police officer of 40 years. That is a violent act and an attack which was said in the courtroom. This was an ambush attack on these kids, and people that do that, this is evil, and evil should be addressed with the maximum sentence. I got a text from someone right away when they said, when the defendant was saying, I'm receiving fan mail. Unfortunately, that happens. We can't intervene on that. It is a sad state of affairs, in my opinion. This is a person who went completely outside our common, what we do as a human race and what we do as people, went outside of what we do as common, took the life of one, and attempted to take the life of 6 others in a setting where they're to be protected and to learn and to grow. Anyone who would want to aspire to be a fan of something like that, in my opinion, there's something missing. There's some wires that may not be crossing properly, because why would you want to be a fan of something? I say be a fan of Kendrick Castilla. Okay, be a fan of John and Maria. Be a fan of all the other victims. Send them fan letters and thank you. And send the law enforcement officers across the state of Colorado fan letters, not a person who commits murder. I don't agree with that. I get to breathe a little longer if someone asks one more question. I'm just saying, leave George on the alert shift. Sorry, George.
One down, one to go.
That is right. We still have another case, so we will again work with the district attorney's office. And I feel very confident in the process and the people they have assigned to it, that we will get in there and we will get a conviction, and with any hope we'll argue for life without parole. Thank you.
Oh, that is so much better. I don't have anything prepared. I do want to answer questions, whatever you guys have.
Well, can you start with this attorney life plus 38 years?
Yeah, that's right. It's life with parole at 40 plus 38 years.
Isn't there a program in place that could actually be parole for consumers?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me back up a little bit here, too, and say that I respect this court, this judge. He's been doing this a long time. He had a heavy weight on his shoulders here, and I thought he was thoughtful in the way he approached it. Now, having said that, I think from an optics standpoint, I'm bummed that we didn't get a bigger sentence after that life, because I think the message that I wanted sent to this community, and it's going to go far beyond this community, is that if you engage in the planning and execution of a mass shooting at a school, you should expect the system to try to take from you every single second of your freedom that you have. And we didn't get that sentence today. But having said that, your question's a good one, because it kind of doesn't matter. Our Colorado legislature a few years ago set up a system where it weakened our sentencing structure for juvenile murderers to the point where even had the judge said life plus 1 trillion years, there is still this program that they would be eligible to apply for at 25 years. And I'm not convinced that's 25 calendar years. I think more likely than not, it's probably 25 years with some kind of earn time in there. So as little as 18 to 20 years, they could apply. And if they're accepted by a sole decision of an executive director of the Department of Corrections, which is a political appointed position, if they complete this program, and it's a 3-year program, they are presumed safe to be paroled back into the streets with us. That could greatly reduce down the amount of time that this person, or frankly any other juvenile murderer, spends in prison. Don't know the answer. Right now, the defendant is at the Foot Center. And so when you hear that they're getting fan mail, this is another soapbox issue for me, that's not the jail. Sheriff Spurlock has the ability to intervene on certain non-legal mail to stop it, copy it, look for threats from it. The Foot Center's part of DHS, Human Services. They don't cooperate with us at all on those issues. We don't have the opportunity to monitor phone calls. We don't have the opportunity to check visitor logs as frequently and as readily as we'd like. And we don't get the ability to see what mail comes in or goes out. It is a much more dangerous situation, in my opinion, for the public and for the juveniles they house. Where they'll go from here, though, is YOS, the Youth Offender System. And they could be in the youth offender system up to age 24. And that is really a decision that is made by the people at the youth offender system. That's, again, we can't influence that. Judge can't make it happen or deny it. But at some point, no later than age 24, they're going to be introduced into the adult Department of Corrections. Where they go from there, I cannot tell you. That is a decision that is made by DOC. I'm not sure there's a normal. I mean, I know that they go out of their way to try to address I don't know the right term, but transgender individuals, I know they go out of their way to try to figure out a way to put them in a safe situation. I just don't know how it works with the internal rules. Currently, because they're at the Foot Center, they're in an individual cell anyway, which is what they do with the juveniles. If it's separated by gender, I don't know. We had a brief conversation about that. The speculation from my juvenile expert over there is that the defendant is probably housed in a male housing section, but in their own cell. Yeah.
Can you say anything about the next case? It's still...
Yeah. Look, the next case is equally important to this one. This one carries a different consequence, though, for this defendant, because this defendant was an adult when they committed this murderous act. And so if they're convicted of the charge that this defendant was here today, it will be life without parole, period, end of story, hard stop. Every other year after that really becomes largely irrelevant, although we're going to argue for consecutive time. I don't want anybody to walk away from a crime like this with freebies. And that is no extra consequence, either on paper or in reality, for having tried to kill another human being. So we're going to ask for a bigger sentence than that. This person remains presumed innocent. Just because this co-defendant pleaded guilty and made the statements they made does not mean that this person is presumed anything other than innocent. The trick here is, and the real struggle, and my frustration is, I want to get this person to trial before I leave office. That doesn't give us a lot of time. The clock is ticking. I'm term limited. I'm out in January. I don't want to leave these victims hanging and sweating an election in November to wonder if someone who takes over this seat is going to have the same appreciation for this case that I do. So I want this case tried. Whether it gets sentenced or not, I'm less concerned about, but I want to get this thing tried before a jury of our community members here and move forward.
You addressed this already, but can you talk about in the courtroom you wanted to send a message, you wanted the sentence to send a message to the community. How do you feel like this sentence, what is the message with this sentence and it's not
I don't know that there's a message that comes from this other than people are going to read life plus 38, and as you know, most people will hear the first few seconds of your story, or they'll read the lead, and then they move on. And my hope was that we would generate a sentence that was, one, reflective of the gravity of this crime. Because make no mistake, Kendra Castillo was murdered, but the goal was to murder everybody in that room. They pulled the trigger 13 separate times, and the co-defendant would have kept pulling the trigger but for the stovepipe on the gun. And so we could have been looking at a situation where there were a dozen or more dead. I wanted a sentence that reflected that intent and that planning. And I think that that would have been more of an attention grabber for probably parents and people out there to see life plus 407 years. Wow, that's a big one. I don't know that people have that same reaction with life plus 38. And like I said, the practical consequence, even had the judge uttered those words, not significantly different.
What did you think about his comments on it being more of a glorifying, that it was glorifying?
Well, one, I respectfully disagree, but two, that's a comment on his opinion of the defendant, right? I mean, if he thinks the defendant is someone that's going to go out there and hold this out as a badge of honor, it seems to me that's the reason why you put a little extra weight on the sentencing. But I didn't get the sense that he felt that way about this defendant, so I don't know why that was part of the analysis. But again, I'm not the one in the robe. I'm not the one paid to make these tough decisions. I'm the advocate on behalf of the victims and the community and justice, and that's what I did. What else? Anything else you guys can think of? I'm shocked you don't have one. Okay, there it is.
So the defendant spoke quite a bit about the work he's been doing on his own mental health.
I say that part again?
The defendant spoke a lot about the work he's been doing on his treatment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you find that genuine? Is that more of a manipulation you referenced from his past? Did he do anything to pursue you in saying that he is working hard?
Look, I saw what you saw. It is very hard to judge a person's character or sincerity based off of statements they make at a time when they're facing, conceivably, the rest of their life in prison. That's a very tough call to make. What we do know is what their past performance was and their past statements. And what we know is this is a smart, highly manipulative person, a person who has been manipulative in circumstances regarding their own mental health, their own substance abuse, the facts of this case, their own involvement in the facts of this case. Those things we know to be true. I want to believe that this is the kind of thing that can help a person find redemption. In no way does that mean I want to see them back out in the mall with my kids and my family shopping someday. But do I want to see them find a way to become redeemed? Yeah, I do. I want to believe it, but man, I can't judge based off of this situation. I can look at their past acts, though, and tell you I'm skeptical. What else? Anything else you can think of?
Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I'll John open the door. I think the idea of defunding police is crack smoke crazy, and pulling SROs out of schools in an environment, especially in this area, where we seem to have increasing violence in our schools, even in communities like this one. I think that's just ridiculous. That is begging for more bad things to take place, and my kids go to these public schools. My thought is, if you're interested in pulling kids or pulling SROs out of schools, go find another school district to live in, because don't do it where I live. I want the SROs in these schools. I don't want there to have to be a Kendrick Castillo to trade his life for others. I want the law enforcement folks to be in there to take care of this issue. And I'm also very, very frustrated now. We have just now seen this is how the legislature's fiddling around with the sentencing structure on juveniles in the name of social justice, how it impacts real-world cases with real-world victims. Now we've seen it. I testified against this bill a few years ago when they offered it, but nope, they knew what's best. And here we are on one of the worst cases in the history of this jurisdiction, and this person is going to be out on parole, young enough to have a family, have a career, be happy. If that was the goal of the legislature, man, that is not what they expressed in that hearing room. So I'm frustrated. This is it. This is the product of who we elect. And on that happy note, Anything else? Yeah, right. Let's hope nothing happens in Denver. Just one weekend of peace. That's it. Just one. Just one. Thank you. Thank you.